In 1804, a man born on a forgotten island crowned himself Emperor of France with his own hands. History calls him a tyrant. But by 35, he'd redrawn the map of Europe forever. He wasn't born into power. He was born on Corsica, a small island France had just conquered. As a boy, he barely spoke French. Other cadets mocked his accent. By 16, he was a second lieutenant in the artillery, talented, broke, and ignored. Then the French Revolution tore the country apart, and chaos became his opportunity. At 24, he retook the port of Toulon from the British in a single brutal siege. Paris noticed. 2 years later, he was commanding France's army in Italy, winning battle after battle against armies twice his size. By 29, he wasn't just a general. He was the most famous man in France, and he wasn't finished. In 1799, while the government back home was collapsing, he marched in with troops and seized control himself. At 30, he was the most powerful man in France, but what he built next mattered more than any battle: the Napoleonic Code, a legal framework still used in courts today. In 1804, he crowned himself emperor, taking the crown from the Pope's hands and placing it on his own head. A year later, at Austerlitz, he crushed the combined armies of Austria and Russia in what historians still call his masterpiece. By 1810, his empire stretched from Spain to the borders of Russia. He was rewriting the borders of an entire continent. Then he made the mistake that ended it all. In 1812, he invaded Russia with over 600,000 men, the largest army Europe had ever seen. The Russians burned their own cities rather than surrender them. Winter did the rest. Fewer than 100,000 of his men made it home. His enemies smelled blood. In 1814, they forced him to abdicate and exiled him to the tiny island of Elba. Most men would have stayed there. Napoleon escaped and marched on Paris with an army that grew with every step. For 100 days, it looked like he might reclaim everything. Then on June 18, 1815, near a small Belgian village called Waterloo, it ended for good. The empire he built in 15 years collapsed in a single afternoon. This time, there was no coming back. He spent his last 6 years exiled on a remote island in the South Atlantic, St. Helena, guarded by the same nations that once feared him. He died in 1821, still just 51 years old. But the legal code he wrote is still the backbone of law in dozens of countries today.